Good evening, everybody. I'm Liz Davis, the Dean of the School of Management at USF, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this great behind-the-scenes event that we're having tonight. You know, we've successfully hosted behind the scenes and this set of very unique events over this past year, starting with Tesla. We've done Kiva, we did Lyft, we did Salesforce.org, LinkedIn, and the Gates Foundation in Seattle. So it's nice to have an event like this and a speaker event. This is our second time actually in Oakland, and we're really glad to be back tonight with Pandora. So I really, in preparing for this opening presentation, I had to think back about my first encounter with Pandora, and I was telling Heidi that this goes back quite a few years, and picture a very, very dark night in a third-floor flat, freezing rain, and they just turned off the heat in Matisyahu, Italy. And I'm sitting there in the dark with an Italian television, 2 channels in Italian, don't speak Italian, and my laptop. And so I was cruising through a very poor internet connection, but I came across some music, and it turned out it was Pandora. And so Pandora, for the time that I did my sabbatical in Italy, was my link home. And since then, and that very cold night, I've really developed an appreciation for all different kinds of music. Some of my favorites in Pandora are world beat music. I also listen to Road Tripper, and if you haven't listened to it, it's a great jam. Hipster Cocktail Party, I recommend it highly. Sunday Jazz Brunch, for when you're having your friends over. Baroque era music, Zach Brown, which is another favorite of mine. And for those who have questions about the guitar, try Otmar Liebert. Put that in Pandora. It's a great listen to. So there are a lot of really interesting things about Pandora and some fun facts that I was able to research. For example, the number of unique monthly visitors to Pandora is over 44 million people. Oh, okay, there you go. Hot off the press. The number of registered users, though, are 80 million. 250 million. Oh, wow. So clearly behind in my research. So number of hours streamed.
5.37 billion in Q4 last year.
Okay, I had 3.9. There you go. Number of contemporary artists featured. Heidi.
Over a million.
Over a million tracks.
Yeah.
And separate artists? 20,000, 30,000, should be a little bit higher. So tonight you're really going to hear really about this major growth in this company. I mean, today, just in this quick exchange, you can see how much the industry and this particular program and company has grown. So for those of you in the audience who are alumni, let me tell you a few fun facts about USF and what we've been doing at the School of Management. We recently made U.S. News and World Report in our MBA ranking for entrepreneurship as number 22 in the U.S. We were also ranked by Forbes in the top 20 of America's most entrepreneurial universities, actually 19th. We moved into the 19th slot. Some of you don't know, but we do own our building located downtown in San Francisco at 101 Howard, where we house most of our graduate programs in the School of Management. But few people know that this is the former Folgers building. Also, the co-founder of Starbucks is a former USF student, and did you know that the Starbucks green was a tribute to USF? The School of Management faculty have increased their scholarly output by 75% in less than 5 years. We now have a student-managed fund of $1 million at the school, and USF's women's basketball won the WCC crown and made it to the March Madness playoffs. So go Dons, right? Oh, well, that got a clap. So let me introduce tonight Heidi Browning. I met Heidi at an event downtown, the San Francisco Big event that's held annually. And so I'm really thrilled to be here tonight and have the opportunity to introduce her. Heidi is currently the Senior Vice President of Strategic Solutions at Pandora, where her team's mission is to really create meaningful connections between bands, brands, and fans through the passion point of music. Recognized in 2014 as one of the top women in music by Billboard, Heidi has had over 22 years of experience leading, learning, and delivering business results. She really has a very unique mix of client agency and consumer tech expertise, which has really been the basis that has fueled her ability to really spot market trends and develop solutions to customers and consumers, agencies, and marketers. Through the integration, really, of research, strategy, the creative aspects, and technology, Heidi's team really develops immersive and measurable marketing experiences for Fortune 500 clients. Heidi holds a BA from the University of Colorado Boulder in international relations, and she currently resides in San Francisco. Outside of work, Heidi is an avid CrossFitter and enjoys spending time on the beach with her dog, Kona. Her favorite Pandora stations are the Beastie Boys, Massive Attack, and Gary Clark Jr. It's my pleasure to introduce Heidi Browning.
Thank you so much. I felt like I was in school there for a second with the question and answer. That was great. I loved your story. It's so wonderful because everyone you meet who you tell you work that you work for Pandora, whether you're in a cab or at a restaurant or checking into a hotel, everyone says, "Oh, I love Pandora." And then there's that little spot of time. And then they go to tell you why they love Pandora, and they tell you a personal story about it. They tell you, how it connected them to their family, how they use it throughout their days and throughout their lives. They tell you how you can make Pandora better, which we always appreciate. And you pause to think about it, and that is a gift that every brand dreams of having, right? To have your consumers so dedicated and so emotionally invested in you as a brand that they care about you and they tell stories about you without you even asking them to. So it's a real blessing to be able to work here at Pandora. I'm going to tell you a few things about our trajectory as a company. First, I'm going to start with my career history to let you know how I came from international affairs to Pandora. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the company strategy. And, we were a disruptor in our category. And we've disrupted and we've innovated and we've iterated. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to close with talking about our company culture because it's really special. And the theme throughout all of this is really the theme of personalization and the power of personal. So first of all, thank you all for coming tonight. How many people are from the East Bay and live here? Woo! And how many came from San Francisco? Nice. Thank you all for coming over the water and coming to join us here. This is a new-ish part of our building. We started on one floor here, and now we're in, 15, 16, 7, 8, 9. We continue to expand and grow. I started here. We were about employee number 300. I was in the low 300s. We're now over 2,000 people. So it's been a remarkable journey just at Pandora alone. So thinking through my career journey, how do you end up going from a major that has nothing to do with strategic marketing and end up here in this crazy world? And it was, I was at University of Colorado in Boulder. I had my sights on, I was an international affairs major. I was going to take the LSAT and go to law school. I was going to take the foreign policy or foreign service exam, probably, change the world. And that my path changed on one day only. When I was in college, I was working off my tuition for the LSAT course. How many people have taken LSAT? Yeah, a lot. It's expensive. So I was working off my tuition at Kaplan, Stanley H. Kaplan, which was the premier test center at the time. And it was a hot summer day. Everybody was outside playing. It was a Saturday. I had to work. I was really bummed about having to work. And our office was in an outdoor walking mall. So there were no cars on it. It was just an outdoor cobblestone walking mall. And I decided, wow, it's such a beautiful day. Everyone's out having fun. I'm just going to pull the table and chair out here onto the walking mall, take my phone. So I took the landline and made the cord go all the way around outside, set up brochures on the table, and just sat there for the day. And I generated more leads for Kaplan in that one day alone than they'd ever seen in the entire time that they'd been down there, all because I wanted to get a suntan, right? So the mission for me was really not about marketing, but when I did this and realized, wow, this is really cool, and I won a marketing award, I thought, hey, this marketing thing is kind of fun, and I got a knack for it, I started to pursue marketing instead of law. And I actually worked at Kaplan for 10 years afterwards, working my way up the ranks, doing all kinds of marketing generalist work, working in Boulder, working in Massachusetts and Boston, and then moving out here to San Francisco and growing throughout that career. But the second really tipping point in my life, the second biggest decision that impacted my career, came right there at the sort of at the end of my Kaplan days. And that was when the dot-com boom was just happening, and San Francisco was the center, the heartbeat, the hub of all of it. We were having digital advertising agencies that were rising up and becoming a differentiated kind of business that nobody had ever seen before. We had all these digital media companies that were, emerging out of the tech space. And a friend of mine had connected me with someone who was opening a digital ad agency in San Francisco. And he said, you just got to go meet Patrick. You're going to love him. I said, I don't know. He's like, no, just go meet with him. Just you guys are going to be two peas in a pod. So I went to go meet Patrick. We had 2 hours of conversation. He, was a lovely conversation. He said, well, so do you want a job? You want to come work with us? And I said, that sounds awesome. That sounds fantastic. Of course I'd love to come work with you, but I have one small problem. I know nothing about the internet, right? We're going to be an interactive ad agency. And he said, that's not a problem. As long as you know marketing, you can learn everything there is to learn about the internet. And that was the day that I fell in love with everything digital. Everything in my life since then, every step of my career has been surrounded by this notion of digital, media, technology, and culture. And I've had the good fortune to work in some pretty disruptive areas. If you think about digital agencies, we're disrupting the whole traditional ad agency model, using and leveraging data in really smart ways, really pushing the boundaries of what personalized and one-to-one communication could be. I then transitioned from the ad agency world over to MySpace, back when it was, going, you remember MySpace? Who remembers MySpace, yeah? It was great. It was a cultural moment at that time, and there was nothing more exciting than being there at that point in time, because nobody knew what to do with MySpace. Marketers didn't know why their kids were on it, let alone how do you market in it. And together we crafted what's now a really important part of every marketer's plan, which is how do you engage in conversation with your consumers, have real relationships, and do this through a social media platform and practice. So that was very exciting. And then, to come here, to have the opportunity to come here to Pandora, which again is another disruptor, a disruptor in the radio category as a pioneer of personalization, as one of the first mobile companies out there. This has been a true treat to actually bring it all together. Again, media and technology and music and culture in one place. So the moral of this story is find your passion, right? It might not be what you set out to do in school, but it might be that, random meeting that you take, or that random, idea that you have, which might be self-serving to get a tan, but in the end translates into something marvelous, into a whole career journey for you. So embrace those moments, pay attention to them, and embrace them. So as we think about Pandora and our journey here, we have truly transformed the future of music. We took the power of personalization to fundamentally change the expectations of what people think of when they think about radio. You think about traditional radio, it's over the air, you listen to what the DJ tells you and curates that's for you to listen to, but you don't discover a lot of new music, or you only discover the music that the DJ wants or the record labels want you to do. And the idea behind Pandora was really to level the playing field, to build a system that was blind to popularity, that was really all about you. What you like is what what's cool. And the opportunity to bring you discovery of new music that was similar to the music and the traits that you like was a game changer in terms of really creating personalized music experiences. And it all starts with the core of our business, the Music Genome Project. And this was actually founded 15 years ago. Our founder, Tim Westergren, was a graduate student at Stanford. He, had a band. He would travel and tour all around the United States. He's got the famous, story of he and his band driving in the van, going from venue to venue to venue. This crowd would have been 10x the size of some of the crowds that were there listening to him. And he felt frustrated as a aspiring musician that being discovered and finding audience is really hard, and it's really expensive, and it's not as rewarding as you would want it to be if you're even when you're a very talented musician. So we had this idea of how can we create this taxonomy of music that'll help us start to make connections between aspiring and emerging artists and the legends and icons that we listen to every day. So he built what's called the Music Genome Project, and it's the largest taxonomy of music in the world. And this is basically, we've got a team of people, they're called musicologists. This is the coolest job ever. Their entire job, every single day that they come to work here, is to put headphones on and listen to one song at a time. Every song that we take into Pandora is analyzed by these musicologists. We have 95 of them, and many of them are touring professional musicians who play in bands that you would know. And many of them are also really proficient. They're all proficient on musicology and really understanding the mechanics behind music. And they listen to each and every song, and they analyze it of up to 450 different attributes per song. So a jazz gene is really rich. That would have up to 450 different attributes, whereas a country song might have fewer attributes, right? And they listen for things like the beat, the rhythm, the instrumentation, the tone and texture of your voice, the lyrics. It goes on and on and on. And this is how we create and start to categorize the music. And it's important when you think about it happening at an individual song level, not an artist or an album level, because this is where we create that connective tissue, because many artists and musicians borrow sounds and instrumentation and rhythms from other genres, other types of music, but you wouldn't hear that if the artist is classified in a specific genre. With the power of the Music Genome Project, we can surface those common traits and help you discover other artists and other music that you might like. So that's the real core of our business. When we started the business, the name was Savage Beast, and the idea behind it was really, taking all of this music genomic content and really being a recommendation engine for big corporations like a Virgin record store, right? Let me show you one example of some of these musicologists right here.
When I'm curating metal and I'm trying to find what's going to work on Pandora, I just try to get into the head of somebody who would like what I'm listening to. Then after that, I have to give it a second listen, see what grabbed me about it. The best music works its way into your psyche.
I think there's like some sort of chemical trigger in your brain, or like a dopamine rush when you hear something new. And that's kind of what I do now as my job, is like I need to go find those things that excite me.
He's right. There is a dopamine rush that happens when you listen to music that you like. So these are just two highlights of our musicologists. But to get the idea of these are humans, they're super passionate about what they do every day and about bringing each and every listener the next best song, the right music that they think they'll like. And they work in conjunction with a large data science team to help us continue to understand more and more about you so that we can deliver each and every one of you your individualized playlist. So if we all started today with a U2 station, each and every one of us would have a different experience with whether we started with U2 or with a specific song because of how we thumb up and thumb down. When you thumb up and thumb down, that's when you're giving feedback to the genome. And this is really, really powerful. This is an evolution that happened over time at Pandora of how we can continue to improve our algorithms. And this is the difference between recommendation and personalization, right? In recommendation, recommendation, we just tell you something that we think you're going to like. Personalization, we give you something that we know you're going to like because you've given us a signal that tells us that you like 1 or 2 or 3 attributes. And many of you might not even know why you like a song. You just say, oh, I like that song, thumb it up, and then Genome behind the scenes figures out how much more does it want to explore that type of music based on your behavior or exploit the music that you know and love. So it's a really fun, exciting thing. I think it's the core intellectual property that still separates us today from all of the different companies that have entered the space. But it is the reason why we were able to take on the next phase of moving from being a recommendation engine for kiosks to the next phase of our strategy, which is really about redefining radio. And we thought about, how, if this personalized music listening experience is happening, where does most music listening happen today, right? 80%, 90% of people listen to terrestrial radio. And we think that we have a better version of terrestrial radio. We have a better way to surface new music. We have a better way to connect people with their artists and the brands that they love. And that's where we began our journey as thinking about how we can disrupt that marketplace. And we really had some key strategies that drove our decisions around how we would take on this new marketplace. It wasn't just about the technology behind Pandora. It was really about the power of personalization, the impact that it had on people's lives, the changes that it made in people's days, the discovery that they were having of new music. But we also had one of those moments in time where a key decision had to be made, and that's when Apple was first launching their first iPhone. And the Apple guys came into Pandora, and they talked to our senior leadership team and asked if we wanted to be one of the first apps available in the App Store. And we were a scrappy startup, right? We were working hard to keep going and fight on and take on the big guys, and had to make really critical decisions. We had to choose between something that we had our sights set on for years and years, or actually pivot and create this app to be in the App Store. And we chose the App Store path. And that was the best decision that we had made as a company at that point in time, right? Because the next day after the iPhone launched and the App Store launched, we doubled our audience overnight. And it's continued to grow ever since. And we found ourselves now at the point where we have over 80 million listeners, and 80% of all listening actually happens through mobile or mobile-enabled devices. It was the beginning of the revolution of how people listen to and access music, right? It's the new access point. So the combination of personalization plus the technology enablement is really what helped catapult ourselves into this new space. The other thing that we thought about when we think about radio is, what is radio? It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's free and it's easy. All you do is turn on the radio and there's music playing, and you can turn a radio on anywhere. If you're in your car, in your house, wherever you are, there's a radio. So we set our sights early on, if we're going to take on this giant category, we have to be as easy, as free, and ubiquitous as radio. And we started early on with our business development relationships. We built relationships with automakers, with the consumer electronics, like think about Sonos and Xbox, and think about we were even built early on into a Samsung refrigerator because we wanted to make sure that we were as free and easy and ubiquitous as radio. It's kind of a funny story about the refrigerator. Apparently, Samsung got really excited about having Pandora in the refrigerator, and they sat down with our, chief product officer, and they had about 2 minutes of conversation, and then the chief product officer said, "Well, do you have speakers in your refrigerators?" And they're like, "We're going to get back to you on that." And then they did, and we did, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to have music wherever you go. But that's hearkening to a much bigger trend that's out there in the marketplace, which is this demand that people have, consumers have, to access content that they love wherever they want it, however they want it, and whenever they want it. And we were ahead of that trend by making sure that we could integrate our product into each and every one of those devices. And we're in over 1,700 consumer electronics devices now, over 150 different car models, and in aftermarket stereos, et cetera. So that is exactly our strategy for taking on this radio business. The next thing that was a real key decision for us in our business was this notion of, well, if anyone can access music and Pandora however they want, wherever they want, they can start on the web and finish on mobile, jump onto the tablet, get in the car. We wanted to be able to deliver our advertising messages, both our audio and our display advertising messages, wherever the audience went. And this is really, it was early days. People weren't doing this. People were still thinking in their channel planning silos, right? This is my budget for TV and my budget for radio and my budget for digital. And at that time they had separate mobile budgets. They had separate innovation budgets. And we said, remix that all up, right? What's really important is you're trying to reach an audience who's engaged. What do you really care where they are, right? And what platform they're listening on? If you just think about you're trying to capture attention of audience who's engaged and insert your brand at that point in time, that's the opportunity. So we created these products that seamlessly run across all of those different devices at the audience level. And that was a real big, game changer for our business from, a revenue standpoint, because that's how we fuel the company to make sure the music can stay free for all of you. We're primarily a revenue model driven by advertising. And we really set the stage for people like Google and Twitter and Facebook actually followed shortly after and did the same thing, recognizing that delivering the demand that consumers had for where and when and how they wanted to have their content, we had to deliver advertising in that same way. So that was a real exciting part for us. And then the last piece of the puzzle to taking on the radio business was really being local. When you think about radio is all about local. And we, thought about our strategy, and we hired salespeople that were in market, that had relationships, that knew the pizza shop on the street as well as the agency buying national advertising. And we really tried to incorporate that whole thought leadership, relationship, and kind of different way of working into our organization, so that we could have both this digital presence as well as a real hand-to-hand local presence in the top markets. So this paid off for us, and again, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year, so we're in our 11th year here, and we have over 80 million people who visit us on a monthly basis in the U.S. alone. We were once an international company where Pandora just played everywhere. However, the music licensing industry, as we started to grow and develop and develop these licenses, we had to actually shut off the rest of the world, because if you know anything about music licensing, it's not easy. And the one challenge that we had is that if you want to be in every country, you have to negotiate music licensing on a country by country by country basis. There's no easy way to do this. And we thought about, we want to keep our eyes square on the mission to redefine radio. Let's nail what we've got going in the US right now. Let's prove that the market wants more than just radio. They want personalized radio, and focus all of our attention there. So that's why we're in the United States. We've expanded recently to Australia and New Zealand and have aspirations to go beyond. But we have 80 million people on a monthly basis here. They listen to an average of 22 hours per month on Pandora. This is on par, if not above, what they're spending time on any other media. And this is really important to marketers, right? Because marketers want to spend their advertising dollars where people spend time and where there's attention. So that 22 hours of engagement is really key. As I mentioned earlier, we're on over 1,700 different consumer electronic devices and continuing to grow. We're on the Apple Watch, we're in the Pebble, we're in the Echo. Every week we have a lab of people that are constantly working to turn out new opportunities for us to be embedded in people's lives. And then the last piece of this is really important. It's about the thumbs. We talked about the importance of the thumbs helping shape your experience. This is what's really driving that passion that happens when you have personalization, right? We've had over 65 billion thumb interactions, pieces of thumb feedback that have helped us shape each and every, the next best song for each and every one of you here today and among those 80 million people. That's a lot of data, a lot of feedback. In fact, we get about 1 billion data points a day when you think about us, that we collect each and every day of how people are interacting with the product itself. And as we think about the future of marketing is all about harnessing data in a smart way, in a strategic way that actually drives value for the consumer as well as your business. So one of the little fun facts I want to share with you is this notion about time spent. I talked about we had 22 hours on average a month per user. But when you start to look at our mobile listening, our mobile usage, and you look at Pandora and the amount of time spent per person, Pandora actually exceeds every other player out there, including Facebook. It's a surprise for many people to see that people spend more time on Pandora than Facebook. But when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Because music is the soundtrack to your life, right? You're often probably playing Pandora while you're on Facebook. But again, this is really an important point, because if we're an advertising-driven model, then this engagement is really key for us, helping our marketers understand why the Pandora audience is so valuable. The other question that we often get out there is about the competition. And this is a chart which is kind of hard to see. Oh, it's giant over here. This chart is what we call the Pandora killer chart. For the course of as long as we've been in business, we counted up to 30 Pandora killers. And you read the headline, every time somebody comes out with a new business, it's going to be a Pandora killer, no matter how big or how small, right? And it's pretty formidable when you have somebody like Apple coming out and Google coming out and Amazon coming out. But when you look at this, these numbers are unique users over time. We also look at brand metrics such as time spent listening. So are we growing our uniques, and are they spending more time when we look at it in the context of competition? And you can see, while we're getting there to the law of large numbers, we haven't taken too much of a hit from the entrance of these other players out here. And we think that that makes perfect sense, because people have different use cases for how they like to listen to music. They want to, for many people, they want to have that effortless and endless discovery that you have on Pandora, right? Where you start your seed station, give it some thumbs, and it goes. Other people like to have that moment where they absolutely curate and control the list, right? So you might want to go to another service for that. And there's a lot of cross usage. And this is, again, sort of the liberation of music, and putting, the devices in the hands of people and the music services in the hands of people to really cater to everyone's needs and wants. The final chart I'm going to show you here is really about, we started off with the mission to disrupt radio, and this is our proof point here, which is taking apples to apples measurement of what does our audience look like in some of these key markets compared to top radio stations in those markets. And there are more people in market in Atlanta, Austin, Salt Lake City, and San Diego listening to Pandora than the top radio stations in each of those markets. And that's because it's just a different form of radio, and it's really taken off. And over the last 2 months, I guess, last month, there was a study that's been going on for years, I want to say decades. It's called the Infinite Dial, where they've mapped the trends of radio over time. And for the first time ever, people who are 18 to 24 listen to more digital audio than they do terrestrial radio. And that, to us, is the tipping point. That's the beginning point at which it's all going to flow from there, because it's that different radio listening experience with more interaction, control, and discovery. Okay, so moving on to, our next birth, I guess you would say, of our strategy. So we, set out to redefine radio. We had enormous success in terms of rapid growth of our company. We went public during this period in time. We took on the radio business. We went local. We're on mobile apps. We were continuing to shape advertising and sort of advertising trends out there. And then we started to grow our audience, so we were bigger than radio stations and radio markets. And then we step back to say, okay, well, what's next, right? As an innovator and a disruptor, you have to continually iterate and then innovate again if you want to continue to, peek around corners and drive the future of music and really transform that future of music. And for us, we thought about it a lot. We thought, well, you know what? Our vision hasn't really changed that much, right? Our vision is still the core vision, which is being the effortless source of personalized music enjoyment and discovery globally. And our aspiration is definitely to get out there globally and bring the power of Pandora out there. But what's changed for us is not the actual purpose that we have, but it's our mission. So our mission, several years ago was redefining radio. Now it's about unifying the full music experience under one roof. And this includes radio, it includes on-demand listening, and live music. And so as a strategy, we started to think about those use cases I just shared with you, right? You might be, loving having Pandora play while you do your run, or you're on your commute, or you're at work, but you're having a party on Friday night and you want to make sure you have a list that's the music you want to play on that night. Well, we found that we were driving people to other services because we didn't have that on-demand feature. So the idea is, how do we keep all of that harnessed within the same roof? The other aspect of this is about live music, right? The primary monetization engine for artists in today's world is the ability to sell concert tickets and merchandise, right? Though musicians' worlds changed dramatically in the last 5 years, right? That used to be a $14 billion business selling music, selling physical music. And now it's a $7 billion business. And that changed for a lot of reasons, right? We moved from albums to singles. We moved from physical to digital. We moved from radio to streaming. There's so many different causes around, why life changed. And so for the artists and for the labels, they're really looking for, well, how do we fill that gap? How do we get back to that 14 billion? And where they're looking is, obviously the streaming services pay fees when people stream on their services, but they also are rounding it out with things like live music performances and merchandise sales, etc. So this is a really important part to us because we value all of the music makers out there and we value their careers. That was back to Tim's original vision about leveling the playing field and democratizing music and really enabling a good musician to have a sensible career in music. And that's where Pandora is playing in that. We're trying to find bands and fans that are connected so that people can drive value or for artists can have careers. So when we set out with this new vision about unifying the full experience under one roof, we had to really think about, do we have the assets it's going to take to actually achieve this vision? And we decided that we needed a little help from the outside, right? So our first acquisition was a data company, and that data company is called Next Big Sound. And Next Big Sound is a really important business in terms of the music industry. When they wake up on Monday morning, the first thing they do is to look to see, how their artist is doing and performing out there. They look at the Next Big Sound data, and the Next Big Sound data scrapes all of the social aspects of the internet out there. So the marketing teams at these labels can really understand the correlation between what kind of PR or promotion or activity happened and then what was the impact in the social space out there. And so this was a really important piece for us, because it put us in the eyes of the music labels and the artists. But there was an important thing. Pandora's data wasn't included in that because we're not the free social data. So people didn't understand how big Pandora was, right? The people who really matter in the music industry had no idea or context for how big we are. So when you today run a search within the Next Big Sound tool and you look at, pick any artist out there, we'll pull up how many stations they have on Pandora, how many likes they have on Facebook, and how many followers they have on Twitter. And you will see in most cases, if not every case that I've seen so far, the Pandora stations outweigh what they have in terms of following on Twitter and on Facebook. And that makes sense, right? These are people who've chosen to add that artist into their mix. This is people showing intent and love for that particular artist, which is really important when they start to think about, well, how do I then grow and enhance my relationship with these fans? So the second company that we bought was called Ticketfly. And Ticketfly, has anyone heard of Ticketfly? Talk about taking on, taking on the radio industry wasn't big enough. We had to take on the big ticketing agencies too out there, Live Nation and AEG, but we're up for it. We got the fire in our belly, and we bought Ticketfly. And Ticketfly really focuses on sort of that fat middle of venues, right? You've got those giant stadium venues that Gaga will perform in and sell out every single time. Bieber selling out $400 a ticket. And then you've got, the super, super tiny clubs, and then you've got that middle venue like the Fillmore and the Fox Theater. And those are really important in terms of really being able to make the economics work for artists, right? And one of the insights that came to our attention was, well, the clubs sell out only 60% of their seats on average, right? 60% of the tickets. That leaves 40% of the tickets unsold on an average night for an average artist for these clubs. That's leaving money on the table for them. So we thought about how can we take the power of this data, right? We've got your registration data. You tell us what your age and your gender and your zip code are. We take that data and we know what music that you like, what artists that you're thumbing up, what you're adding, and how can we use the power of that data to surface the fact that there's a concert nearby of your favorite artist and try to drive ticket sales from there. Basically giving you value as a listener, because now all of a sudden you're aware that this concert's in town. That was the number one reason people didn't buy the tickets and they didn't fill the venues, is that people didn't know that their favorite artist was in town. So we've connected you on that way, and then we've closed the loop for the artist because they're able to send an audio message to invite you to the show and have that personal one-to-one, communication or connection with their fans. So this is a real exciting new addition to our family. We just acquired them last quarter. So we're really excited to kind of see how this and where this evolves for us in the future. And then the last company that we bought was called RDO, and it was only part of RDO that we bought. We took in some of their key assets, namely a number of their different engineers, software engineers, but also their on-demand assets. They've been delivering on-demand music globally for years and years. They've figured out a lot of the hard problems that you encounter at that point in time when you go global, and it's very complex, especially when you start to think about the music labels and digital tracking of your, what you're delivering in each different country, the different rates, et cetera. So we wanted to be able to take advantage of this opportunity to help us accelerate our vision. Again, our vision of unifying the whole music experience under one roof, from radio to on-demand to live tickets, live events. So this is our strategy, and we're really excited to be here. We had some really exciting news today, which is, how many saw the news that we got a new CEO, which is actually the founder of our company, Tim Westergren. He's our spiritual leader, and we are so excited to have him back at the helm. And really, it's the right time for him to be at our business, right? He is the most passionate person about our business. He's our greatest storyteller. He is the creator of our culture, which I'm going to share with you in a bit. And it's really exciting to have him back and connected with us to help us drive our future. And ultimately, the final closing slide here really is about really fulfilling on consumer needs, right? So we really, when we think about bringing those acquisitions into house, when we think about how do we unify this whole experience, what we're really doing for you is paying off on giving you music where you want, giving you music how you want, and then for everyone in the world who wants it. So the connective tissue through all of this, I think you've, heard me say it over and over again, but it's really the power of the data and the power of this people-powered data. And this is a really different concept for everyone, right? Because we have such engaged people and we know who people are. It's anonymized, but essentially we know what your, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 likes as a listener on Pandora. This is really important and powerful for both us understanding how to be better to deliver you the next best song, but also how do we connect you with artists? And then lastly, how do we serve you the most relevant advertising that we can? So that when we, pursue anything in this company, we think about it as what's good for the listener is good for the advertiser. And when we embark on any new consumer feature or ad product, we think about those two things and we measure ourselves against those metrics to make sure that what we deliver is going to deliver a lifetime of listening and enjoyment for our listeners, while at the same time we're driving our business forward. So our culture is fun. You get a little taste of it here. I don't know if you got to do a little tour, but the culture is really truly the most special thing about Pandora. And I've worked in a lot of companies. I've worked in big companies. I've worked in small companies, ad agencies, and I can tell you this is like my favorite place to work on the planet. It's like you know, kind of die and go to job heaven when you come here. And the culture is something that we hold very near and dear to us. Each and every person that works in this company holds the culture first. And it's, you know, to do that, you have to actually live the culture, right? You have to be the culture. And everybody from top to bottom throughout the organization has to embody and embrace it for it to work. It can't just be words on a plaque or a credo. It has to really be true principles that you believe in and that every single one of us thinks about every day as we go through our daily lives. And, you know, I really get back to this notion of Tim as our leader. He's a humanist, and he's created this humanist culture, right? And it's very, very wonderful to be a part of this. And he started out with his executive team, you know, early on, crafting what we call the Pandora principles. And the Pandora principles, each and every word of these principles was labored over because words matter. Each and every word matters, right? And as each and every person joins the company, we have what we call Pandora University. And the first thing that you do is first of all, every executive from the company comes in and does introductions. We talk about our favorite music experience, and then we, you know, meet everybody in the room. We try to remember everybody's name. It's getting harder as you get bigger, but we try. And then, you know, you go through this Pandora University, and the first thing that we do is we have Tim and our CEO at the time take everyone through the Pandora principles. They're that important. We've always kicked it off with that, and it's level setting. We've never had a CEO or Tim miss one of these meetings because they're that important to our culture, and that sets the stage for everything. The next thing that we've been committed to, and you've been probably, you know, hearing a lot about it in the marketplace, is diversity. We are committed to diversity. In fact, we've hired someone who's in charge of diversity and helping us become a more reflective organization of our listeners and our society as a whole. And we actually have pretty strong numbers out there. We aren't afraid. We posted our numbers. We shared them out with the Silicon Valley and the rest of the world because we're very proud of where we are, but we can always do better. So diversity is key in our culture, and embracing that and really, you know, trying to be game changers in the industry around that. The next area of our culture is about, you know, having these passion groups. We recognize that we have so many people. All of us are passionate about music at some level, right? But we have a lot of other crazy passions like ping pong and juicing and yoga and dogs, like you name it. But we've created this opportunity for us to have they're called PERGs, and these are passion PERGs, and they're actually funded by our culture team so that you can find like-minded individuals in the company who share your passion. And this has been critical in terms of getting out of your team that you work with every day, right? This is about creating bonds on a personal level with other people who share your passion, no matter where they sit in the organization, which is quite wonderful. The next area is about giving back, and giving back is really, you know, a powerful part of our culture, as well as, I think, any successful company that's out there. But again, it has to be true to who you are as a business. And I'm going to come back to that at the next, because I want to show you a video of what we're doing as a company. But the next point that's related to this is about volunteer time off. And I remember when I first started in the company, and I was in my Pandora U class, and we're sitting around the table. It was a very small class at that time. And somebody raised her hand, and she said, "Where can I just donate directly from my paycheck to my favorite charity?" And, you know, most people raise their hand, you know, what's the 401k? What's this? What's that? She's like, no, I just want an automatic deduction, you know, to my favorite charity. And, you know, from that moment, that was like, wow, that's a really great and cool idea. And so Tim called a meeting. And when Tim called the meeting, you know, again, we were about 300 people at that time, 100 of us showed up about how can we get involved in giving back. So we started to think, wow, this is a real big movement. It's really important to our employees. So we're at the point now where we've made it so important important to us as a business that we give each and every employee 40 hours of what's called VTO time, volunteer time off, for you to do whatever you want, wherever you want, however you want, when you're giving back to society about whatever you're passionate about. And this is a tremendous, it's a tremendous investment on our part as a business. You know, when you start to think about the math on that, it's pretty incredible. When you look at 2,000 employees time average salary, that's millions and millions of dollars. But we believe so strongly in that is part of our culture, and we want to invest in it. And we don't want to restrict people from pursuing their passion, so we want to enable whatever charity or giving back scenario they want to give. So for us, for giving back at Pandora, it generally centers around music. So we as a company also give back. And we've got a couple of programs that we've been running at Pandora for years. We've been deeply embedded in Oakland culture. Oakland was very good to us when we were a struggling company here. We always want to give back to Oakland. We've got a program called the Futures Group, which is really about bringing music into schools where there are disadvantaged students who actually don't have any music programs. But we've added and expanded that to have a more national program, and it's called Little Kids Rock. And let me play this video for you because it's adorable. Hold on.
My name is Karina Timbergen-Cotty. I lead the Giving Back efforts at Pandora. Pandora was introduced to Little Kids Rock a few years back at a conference, and after seeing their mission and learning a little more about what they do, it didn't take long for us to jump on board.
Little Kids Rock is this amazing organization that helps kids learn music and brings instruments to our school.
You get to be free, you get to express yourself, and then you get to have a little fun at the same time.
You get the chance to play in the schools, you have concerts with the equipment and guitars.
Little Kids Rock is a perfect partner for Pandora. And in 2015, we had launches in Chicago, LA, and Oakland. And then in 2016, we launched our program in New York. It's really great being at these launch events and seeing the kids' faces light up when they see the musicians on stage.
Hi. Hey, what's up? Did you enjoy, yeah? What instrument do you play? Oh, you were grooving.
During the performance we saw, we were dancing together, moving one way to the other.
Children get to have more experiences and with things they've never done before. In rock, people, they don't have to be scared. They can just do how they feel.
We're really excited to bring the power of music to schools all over the country.
You should try out one or two instruments because it's just amazing to play and it's your music.
I just think it's really great and I want to keep on playing.
Little Kids Rock. Well, yeah, it's in the name.
That kid's going somewhere, right? He's got the it factor. But it's really amazing because this is a program where we bring instruments to schools. We all know that music and arts have been cut from many, many schools across the country. So we bring instruments, we bring artists who perform, and then we give them music lessons. And what we teach them is confidence. We teach them improvisation. We teach them there's a lot of math involved in music, right? And there's a lot in performance. And they learn a lot of skills that they can then apply to later in life. So that's a really exciting program that we're really proud of for Pandora. So my favorite Pandora principle, of which I'm not going to tell you all of them because you have to come work here to get all of those, but is we believe in the power of personal. And of course, it's being true to our product, our vision, and our core. And it's not just about being true to personalization of the listening experience, but it's how we personalize our communications and connections with our listeners. We have a group of people that are called listener support. There are 46 we call them panditos on that team, 46 people who answer 130,000 emails a month. 130,000 emails a month, and we answer each and every email. That was something that Tim made really clear when he started the company. We would never lose that. He used to answer each and every email, and now we have a whole team of people that do it. And they get in these really long and great conversations with people about music, about how to use the product, about how to problem solve. And we hear these stories. This is how we get the stories back about what impact we're making on people's lives. And every company meeting, We have people from listener support who stand up here and share some of the stories that they've heard so that we can all remember why we're connected and how we're connected to our listeners. And it was a really powerful, powerful experience for all of us. The other thing that Tim did really early on was he formed town halls. Good old-fashioned town halls, kind of like we're having today, one here today. And he would go to a city, he'd email everybody in the city. Here's an example of a town hall. And look at this. This is a crowd of people who came out on a, wintry night in Cleveland, Ohio, to listen to Tim talk. We weren't giving away anything. We weren't saying, they just wanted to meet the founder of Pandora and talk about music. And this is so amazing. This is a part of our culture. We continue to do this. And it's really about having that one-to-one connection with people. Businesses forget about how to do that. This is grassroots at its finest, but it's grassroots through the authenticity of being a personalized company. So I'm going to show you 2 more videos, and then we have room for questions. But the next video is, look at this. He's kind of easy on the eyes, right? Nick Jonas. It's kind of good. This next video really shows how we can bring all of our smart data together to drive an extraordinary experience for our listeners. And we have, these insights that drive our business, and we know that people who thumb more listen longer. So if you thumb more, you listen longer, both in terms of tenure listening, but also time spent listening. And that makes sense, right? The more you thumb, the more it's personalized, the more relevant it is to you, and you like it. So we thought about, well, how can we surprise and delight people while they're thumbing? How can we get people to thumb more by giving them this extraordinary experience? So I'm going to play the video, and then I'm going to tell you about it at the end.
D-Mark.
Whoa.
Hey, family.
What are you doing on my phone?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on these screens behind us. Take a step back so we can get the whole experience. Basically going to be my backup dancers.
Okay.
Let's do this.
I don't like the way he's looking at you. I'm starting to think you want him too. Am I crazy? Have I lost you? I know you love me, can't help it. I turn the cheap music up. I'm puffing my chest. I'm turning ready to face you. You can call me upset. It's not your fault that they hover. No disrespect. It's my right to be hellish. I still get jealous. You're too sexy, beautiful. Everybody wants a taste. That's why. I still get jealous. Too sexy, beautiful. Everybody wants a taste. That's why. I still get jealous.
I loved your moves.
Awesome. Love you.
So cute, right? So that was amazing. Like, do you ever have those creative ideas where you're like, that's absolutely impossible, but you do it anyway? That was one of those ideas, because that was all done live, right? So we had to make sure that we understood how many thumbs per hour each and every artist had. We had the artist in the studio. We had to target people who had iOS 5 or higher, because those were actually FaceTime phone calls. And then we had the artist record a little audio spot that invited people to join the FaceTime call. So if you didn't think you were getting punked and you actually went through with it and then did the actual event, you got to participate in that one-to-one personalized concert, which was extraordinary. So that was we did it with a number of different musicians. It was really fun. It's not, something scalable, right? Those are these big ideas that you do once in your lifetime, but they're really important because it helps us really evangelize the power of personal and the power of thumbing. So now I'm going to finish with my favorite story of all, and it's back to our listeners and back to the power of personal and the one-to-one relationship that we have with our listeners. And this is a picture of Kyle and Maggie. They're a wonderful couple. They've been longtime Pandora listeners, first-time caller, longtime listener, first-time caller. And Kyle called us, and he said, I want to propose to Maggie. I love her. We love Pandora. In fact, we love Pandora so much that Maggie went out and bought a new Hyundai Hyundai Velociter, and it was the only car that you could buy that had Pandora in it at the time because she wanted to be able to listen to Pandora in her car. And he said, I got this whole plan, will you help me, propose to her on Pandora? So of course we were like, yeah. So we got our engineers together, our creative team together, we got everybody in the company, PR, everyone rallied around to help Kyle propose to Maggie. And he was really clever because what he did is he scheduled dinner at a restaurant, and it was about 25 minutes away because he wanted to make sure that there was time, like that a commercial would come up in the time that they were in their car listening to Pandora on their Hyundai Velociter. And this is what she heard.
Hey, Maggie. Yes, you, Ms. Marguerite Fruget. Hello. You're probably wondering why Kyle is sitting here with you, listening to Pandora and acting kind of nervous. Or shall we say, overwrought, titillated, exultant even? Yes, we know you are his personal thesaurus, so you can explain to him what all of that means. But Kyle actually has some choice words for you. In his words, Maggie, I've never met a person as incredible or beautiful as you. Every day I think about how the universe worked in mysterious ways to bring us together by chance, creating a love as strong as ours. You are the most important person in my life, and I want nothing more than to have you by my side for as long as I live. You are my absolute sweetheart, and I know this has been a long time coming, so...
And of course she said yes, which we call the ultimate ROI, right? So that's building true engagement. But I always get teared up when I hear that whole thing. But this is the impact that music has on people's lives. This is the impact that you can have as a business when you think about people on the other end, not just consumers, but actual people, and that you embrace that personalization in everything you do as a company, from your culture to who you hire, to how you behave, to how you interact with your ecosystem of listeners, in our case, listeners and music makers and advertisers. And so that's why Pandora is a really, truly special place to work, because I think very few companies have, gone out there and been a social business before we even thought about what does it mean to be a social business. So I'm very proud to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.